Rotary Club of Lacrosse and is the District 6250 Youth Exchange co-chair. Since 2010, Bill has held numerous club and district posts and responsibilities, starting with becoming the youth exchange coordinator in his club in 2010, still active, and the first ethics committee chair for the district 6250 in 2011. He served as the district 6250 membership chair, the district 6250 youth exchange inbound coordinator, and was president of the Rotary Club of Lacrosse in 2014-2015. All that before becoming our district 6250 governor in 2020-2021. Bill is blessed with two wonderful daughters, hundreds of youth exchange sons and daughters around the world, and a wife who he adores. Bill's here to talk to us about the Rotary Youth Exchange for 2024 and beyond. Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, thanks, Dan. I was going, when you're reading, I'm going, where the heck did he get that introduction from? And then I think I was written in some book somewhere, right? Yeah. Yeah. All right. There you go. Yes, I was honored to be your district governor. You all in the room were so blessed that I was your district governor during the year of COVID, because that meant you didn't have to see me. I did 620 plus Zoom calls that year. And I'll tell you one thing, I made a very fundamental error as we get started. I'm not wasn't a big fan of Zoom. I've grown to like them a lot. I think they're fantastic. But when they first started, I wasn't looking forward to them. So I made myself a promise that I was going to have a drink at every one I did. And that meant that there was some days I was doing 5 and 6 Zooms a day. And unfortunately, some of them were recorded. I can't even understand what I was saying by the end of some of them. It was pretty amazing. And yes, right now I am the co-chair for Youth Exchange with Jan Bonset-Veal. I'll take over on July 1st in that role, because Jan has successfully been kicked up the trail. She is going to be our first ever woman president of Central States Rotary Youth Exchange, which is a 20 Rotary district consortium overseeing youth exchange for Rotary across the entire top of the United States. So we're very, very proud of Jan, and I've got enormous shoes to fill. Well, let me spend a couple of minutes giving you some background, because I found the background of youth exchange fascinating. And in all of my time of being involved in youth exchange, I never even knew much of this background. And so it's good to know where we've come from to know where we're going to go. First of all, Rotary Youth Exchange was first proposed in 1927. 1927 was the first record in Rotary of this being proposed. It was a French dude, a French Rotarian, that wanted to send his little precious daughter off to another country and then have their precious daughter come back to them. So it was a Rotarian to Rotarian exchange. So exactly in 1927, we had one student that went back and forth. In 1928, it kind of caught some steam. The first exchanges that year happened between Belgium and Denmark and Italy and Switzerland. And again, it was Rotarian to Rotarian only. Okay, our kids, our grandkids going back and forth. The Yanks got involved in 1937. In 1937, America got involved. Southern California District 107 no longer exists. Wanted to do an exchange of Rotarian kids, but they specified they only wanted them to go to a certain place, and that was Latin America. So the first American exchanges happened to only Latin America in 1937. And then a small worldwide event happened not long after, in 1939 and beyond, and that changed everything. When World War II started, youth exchange was this small little thing. And when World War II ended, it blew up and became enormous. I think it was because the focus of the exchange changed. It went from being peer-to-peer Rotary to Rotary to we opened it to anyone. We opened it to non-Rotarians could go. But we also changed the focus of youth exchange toward the purpose of peace building through understanding. And we just come out of this extraordinary event called World War II. And there was this pull and this call for us to open our hearts and open our hearts to kids from around the world, to have them come and get to know us better, and for us to get to know them better. And for anyone who's ever gone through youth exchange, and I know I'll come a little bit later to your club has a rich history in doing youth exchange. I know you'd agree with me that there's a basic adage in youth exchange, which is we cannot and do not go to war with friends. And that is what youth exchange does. The gift of youth exchange is that we are changed. Not only is the student changed, we are changed significantly. And might I argue that we find ourselves in a similar mindset today. We live in a world that is uncertain for many of us. We've come through uncertain times. And I think we're at the next renaissance of what could happen around youth exchange worldwide going forward in Rotary. Now, in 1953, the first Rotary Youth Exchange Conference happened. It happened in Switzerland. In 1966, which, by the way, is the most important year in the history of the globe, fantastic year, especially January 17th, very important day. But in 1966, Rotary took up the issue. The board of Rotary, the Rotary Board of Directors took up the issue of whether youth exchange should be part of Rotary. And in 1975, Rotary International officially recognized youth exchange as an activity of Rotary. So we've come a long way since 1927. Over 90% of the Rotary districts worldwide are certified to participate in youth exchange. Over 6,000 clubs have participated in youth exchange in some way, shape, or form. And each and every year, including the one we're in now, between 6,000 and 8,000 students go in or out for youth exchange worldwide. 6,000 to 8,000 students. Now, Rotary did not invent youth exchange. Some people think we did. We didn't. But we are a big player. If you look at the United States and you look at the number of J-1 visas that are used for foreign exchange that come back and forth for high school students, Rotary Youth Exchange is 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 high school students that come in for exchange come in and out through the Rotary program. Now, 6250 itself has a very long tradition of Rotary Youth Exchange. The back, as far as I could find, is we have records that go well back into the 1980s and or actually late 1970s. Many of those records, unfortunately, are still kept in Madison, Wisconsin. Poor Rob Stroud has got an entire room full of file cabinets full of paperwork, because before the computer age, we had to keep all of those applications and all those documents, personal things. We need to get rid of those. Now, we have digital records from the 1980s and forward, the late 1980s, and I'm sorry, from the year 2000 and forward, we have digital records, which has made things a lot easier. There's we keep the accountants in 6250 very, very busy. When you look at the amount of cash flow for the inbound programs, the outbound programs, payments of all those things floating back and forth, if you look at the cash flow that flows through 6250, more than 55% of it is youth exchange driven. We keep our accounting people very, very busy staying on top of that. And it's a rather large committee. There are 10 Rotarians on the executive committee, and there's an additional 50 to 70 Rotarians at the club level. So we were talking 90 plus people most years in youth exchange across 6250. In your club, you have a superstar named Steve Fine. Steve is your YEO and your YPO in your club. I think Steve's been doing it for quite some time too. I might be wrong on that, but I think he's been doing it for quite some time. So a hat tip from me to Steve for all of his work over the years in youth exchange. So now let's talk a little bit about your club, okay? I'm going to first of all introduce you to the 3 areas of youth exchange that we have. You're probably pretty aware of 2 of them, and there's one that's pretty new. Let's start with the obvious one, which is when we accept into our homes a foreign exchange student from overseas, okay? We call this the inbound program. Across the district this year, the 23-24 year, we'll have 16 inbound students, okay? I looked back historically at Madison South. I went back and looked at it in the digital record. My pardons for only going back that far. You've had 9 students that have been inbound students in your district since we turned digitally. So let's just say a little north of 20 years, about an average of every other year, you've had an exchange student. The last one I see on your records was 2017-18. Anybody in the crowd remember Chloe? Okay, Chloe was your exchange student from Taiwan back in 1718, and talking about getting to know the world a little bit. She lives in a pretty interesting part of the world, doesn't she? Okay, so I wonder how well we've been keeping up with Chloe. I'm sure she could share some interesting insights into what is going on over there. But the inbound program is a 9-month program. They come, they stay in our homes, they attend American school. The inbound program has a cost to the club to cover that. You cover stipends, you cover other things in the club. The club is charged about $1,600 for covering of a bunch of tickets, and then there are some costs inside the program. You need to have 2 host families in order to sponsor a student. Okay, your club, if you remember Chloe and others, I can share that your clubs are irreparably benefit. They benefit beyond words when they come and they spend time with you. Your club is changed by it. I would strongly encourage Madison South to continue having a student again in the near future. In addition to the inbound program, we have an outbound program. These are our sons and daughters and grandchildren that go overseas, kind of that come see, come saw. They go out for 9 months to 11 months as well. They attend school around the world. For the 23-24 year, we have 9 outbound students. This is the area that COVID has had the most dramatic impact around. Before COVID, our district averaged 15 to 20 inbound students. This year we have 16. So you're kind of saying we're in that same world. But before COVID, we would average 15 or so outbounds as well. That is an area we saw a significant drop off in. And I can share with you that there was no students from all of Madison that went outbound this year or last year, or the last 2 times. Okay, this is an area that Madison as a whole could work on. There's a lot of different things in the lives of a young person that maybe makes it a little challenging them from to say yes. But what I am convinced is that the percentage of our students that have that same little energy and spark in them, that desire to go out and see and change the world, I don't believe that's changed significantly. I do believe there's a few more opportunities for those people to go out and change the world, but it is our job to try to find a way to make sure that they're aware of the opportunity. Cost your club nothing to host an outbound student. Okay, virtually nothing is required of you to host an outbound student. We have 9. I looked at the historical numbers for you again. You've had 8 outbound students from Madison South going back to about 2020. The last one I see was from 2012, 2013, a Rachel Furlow. Does anybody remember Rachel? Okay, Rachel went to Spain and she was sponsored by the Madison South Club. So those are our 2 traditional programs, and I want to quickly introduce you to the third one that is probably going to be the fast upcomer, and we call this the short-term exchange. Okay, so as I shared with you before, a long-term exchange, inbound or outbound, is 9 months to 11 months. A short-term exchange is 2 weeks or as many weeks as you wish to make it. There come see, come saw programs between 2 families in 2 countries. Okay, so if you have any of your sons, grandkids, next door neighbors, and they want to go on a 2-week vacation and pick the country, if we know they want to go out, we'll find a Rotarian who may have a kid in that same area and they can come back and forth. It doesn't require that we have kids go back and forth, but that's the most common program. We can send kids to almost any country in Europe and send them for 2 weeks to a language school. They go off to camp with a bunch of other kids and have a blast for 2 weeks. And it opens amazing doors. I was speaking like this to the Janesville Club a couple of months, about 3 weeks ago. I was in Janesville. And on that weekend before, on that Monday that they were gathering, I had a phone call from a young person out of Mount Horeb. Okay. This young lady wanted to, her dream in life was to be in fashion design. So she was just wondering, would it be possible we could maybe send her to Italy? We make 3 phone calls. She's going to be gone for 3 weeks to Milan. I hear that's a pretty good spot for going off to go for fashion design. Okay. And they'll be coming back here as well. Their daughter will be coming back over here. What an opportunity. What a thing on the resume. Think about that for a college resume. That now exists. What's the cost involved? The only cost to mom and dad is to get the kid back and forth. That's it. You can use frequent flyer miles. There's none of these other restrictions involved in the program. Now, I tell you that story about that kid that called because when I was speaking at the Janesville Club, they had a young lady sitting in the room. That she was their high school Rotarian of the month, and they had her and her parents come to the show. Guess what? So I tell that story, and you see her whip her head around at her mom so fast that her neck fell off. Because this young lady wants to go. Guess what? She wanted to be involved in fashion design, and she looked at it. Her parents goes, "Wow, I could do that." And you can see mom and dad looking at me saying, "You son of a biscuit. What did you get me into?" Right? But that's how fast this stuff can move. And it's a newer program. We are seeing extraordinary numbers of the short-term students decide that long-term isn't so bad. Because when you think of the restrictions of sending our sons and daughters overseas, I think there's a few. Let's not, there's elephants in the room. Cost about $6,000 to send our kid overseas. If I look at other programs that do this, AFS and others, the program this year costs $600 a week through AFS. Do 9 months times $600 a week. Okay, $20,000, and we're doing it for 6. So we have a good value, but $6,000 is $6,000. The other 2 reasons why is you probably have some kids who are a little afraid. This is a big experience going overseas. That might be a little bit too much for them to handle. And we have an equal number, if not a higher number, of moms and dads that are not too excited about maybe sending their little wonders overseas. Having it done at a short thing like that, couple of weeks long, the length of time is set by both parents. Okay, if they want to do it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever they want to do, it's up to them, right? They go over, they come back and they say, you know what, that wasn't so bad. And then you see the applications come through to spend their year. So I think the perfect age to do this would be during their summer of their sophomore or junior year. That would be the perfect times to go back and forth. This year we have 7. I don't know why we couldn't see 20 or more, honestly, across the district, because it's such a, there's no responsibility out of the club except for, in your case, Steve would maybe help the people fill out the paperwork. That would be the only responsibilities. So we have the long-term inbound, the long-term outbound, and we have the short-term. 16, 9, and 7 this year. So numbers are a little softer than we want, but we're trying to get them back up to the level. So let me close, and if there's any time for questions, I'm open for that at the end as well. Let me close with what we aspire to is at the district level from our committee and what our goals are. Okay, first, what do we aspire to? I know firsthand that a club is changed dynamically by having these students in our midst. So I want to increase the number of clubs that are directly touched by youth exchange. Right now, we have about 18% of our clubs have an inbound, an outbound, or a short term. We normally run around 23-ish. We're a little low on the outbound side. So let me just say, I think it's normally 23 to 25. I expect we'll get back there in a hurry because Madison was basically turned off after COVID. When you guys reopen back up, I think we'll get back on the line there. I'd like to see that get to around 50% of our clubs. So if we're in the 56, 58 clubs, I'd like to see about half of our clubs have either an inbound or an outbound or a short term or some way touching youth exchange. Those clubs will be better clubs. So that's the aspiration, but I believe that goals are mandatory. So that's not a goal, that's an aspiration. Here are our goals that we have set for the next 3 to 5 years. First of all, we'd like to get to 18 inbounds within the next 3 years. We'd like to get back to 18 outbounds in the next 3 years. And we'd like to get our short-term program up to 15 in the next 3 years. So those are going to be our measurables that we have going forward in youth exchange. Yeah, guys, I get up every morning. That's the reason I'm a Rotarian. This is the reason that I get up every morning. Most of us have our Rotary wows. Why do we do what we do? Okay, for me, it is simply seeing how my world has been changed. I'm leaving, so I heard someone's going to Spain. My wife and I are heading over to Italy for 5 weeks here in May. I know I'm going to see a minimum of 4 kids. Okay, if I make the mistake of saying on Facebook or Instagram that I'm going to be in a country, I better book time. Pisses my wife off, but I better book time because the kids are going to find you. Okay, we go down to South America, we go to weddings. These kids make a point in and they make a place in your heart, and that makes all of us better people. Okay, so I encourage you as strongly as I know how to encourage without badgering to hope that you'll re-engage in the outbound and inbound program. And for each of you, just look up and down your street, look within your families. The short-term program is a program that would really, I think, be a short-term benefit for a lot of our sons, daughters, and grandkids. With that, I'll open it up for any questions. I'll let Dan call on people.
Hand the microphone around to people.
Yeah, Glenn Rindfleisch was in youth exchange for many years, not only representing this club, but is representing our daughter who spent her junior year of high school in Sweden. She babysat for a member of this Rotary club, and he kind of encouraged her to think about it and get involved. Well, she had a wonderful year. And because of that, I joined the Rotary. And of course, that's 40 some years ago. And fantastic program. We also hosted 2 students from Bolivia, happened to be a brother and a sister 5 years apart. But again, that was a wonderful experience that we had and enjoyed doing. So thank you for all your efforts. We used to go to Grand Rapids, Michigan every year for the conference that orientated these students coming and going, and enjoyed that very much, and got involved with the Madison Rotex. I started the organization that I thought we should have the program not cost the student anything. Let's get a fundraiser going through Madison Rotex, and we don't have to charge them anything. So we had Halloween parties, this party, that trip to the Brewers game, and so on and so forth. But thank you for everything you're doing now with Rotary Youth Exchange. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Thank you. Quick little note. Yeah, I for 4 years, I was the coordinator for all of Grand Rapids. So I was the unfortunate puppy that had to put that entire conference together for 4 years. That's hard work. You get to stay in the dorm room at Calvin College. I will just officially say that a dorm room bed is not designed for a 6'4" person. It's not. I tried to sneak out one year to a hotel because it just didn't work, and I got my butt kicked for doing it. No, it's a great thing. It's up to 1,000 youth running around a campus. The energy is. I would pay more money than any ticket I've ever seen at the Overture Center, any ticket, to see the youth, the talent show in Grand Rapids. That's how good they are at that show.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, can you hear better with the microphone online?
I don't even know it's on right now, Tara, but I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Does the short-term youth exchange, is it only for going overseas, or if somebody wanted to go to a different state, would that be an option?
No, it's not. Right now, it's only in a foreign exchange. Okay, it's not state to state. What a great idea. I would, if that was an idea someone wanted to take up, let's just make sure we do it outside of youth exchange, because I got too much to do as it is. But it's, love you, Tara, but no, boy, that would be a door opener, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's only for right now. It is only for, and there's not any restrictions, by the way, by country. Each country has to be vetted, but we have a larger number of countries that will do short-term than will do long-term. 42-ish countries right now we are approved to do long-term exchanges with. But the world really does not like 18 and 19-year-old Americans. So if you get to be 19 years old, that number goes down to 2. The short-term exchange has much less of a problem with short visits from older. So I think that the short-term exchange is also an excellent opportunity for a gap experience, for a just out of high school going into college young person, because the restrictions are much broader than for the long-term exchange. Great question. So,
Other questions? Was there a question in the chat?
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
No.
one last thing I'll say,
Yes.
I hate this, and a little bit of a downer, but did you know that, I mean, forever, the United States was #1 in the world by request. So if you went around the world and kids were going through exchange, they list the countries they want to go to. And the United States was always #1. Okay, always number one. In the last 5 years, it's been neck and neck with those darn Brazilians down in Brazil. They have a good time. This year we dropped to number 5.
Well,
So it's not that it has nothing to do with how many we take or how many left. It's how they rank us of whether they would wish to come here.
is there information on the Rotary website? International Rotary process or criteria for eligibility and application and so forth?
Yes, there is. So our district website is been a work in progress for a number of years. So I say that with a smile on my face to know that in some areas you can go and find squadouche. Youth Exchange is not one of them. We've got a very active group that keeps that pretty updated. So you'll see applications, you'll see ways to be a volunteer. There'll be the application process to be a volunteer. There's rules. I mean, there's good stuff on the website. Lots of good stuff for Youth Exchange on our website.
Yeah, Bill, just a quick comment about Brazil. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to lead the district's group study exchange team down to Brazil and spent 35 days down there. And one of the takeaways that I had from it, because it's interesting, at that point in my life, I'd been involved in Rotary almost 8 years. And here I was coming to these meetings at Madison South Rotary every Monday. But it took that experience out to Brazil for me to really see and understand the impact Rotary has worldwide. And in Brazil, the majority of our Rotary meetings were all in the evening. And they often involve the guys over in another room who do the meeting part of it, but the wives and all the kids were over in another room. And then afterwards, we'd all be together for a couple hours. And it was really a great, more of a family experience. And sometimes I wonder, you know, about what Rotary is in the United States and how they might come down on that list or kids come to visit, is that, you know, we tend to still get together for lunches. It's more of a business thing. But more of that aspect of being more, I think this club does a lot of social stuff. I'm not just in this club. We have a lot of great groups. We do things outside of our traditional Monday, but I just would challenge that maybe some other folks from the country need to think about what they're doing after hours and not just at their weekly meetings. That's like,
I'm a member, so I was introduced as a member of the Rotary Club of Lacrosse. Well, you know, we have 7 of them here, right? And so I was the president of the, you know, the Rotary Club of Lacrosse. I know how you Madison people love that thing, right? The Rotary Club of Madison. And I was a member of the Rotary Club of Lacrosse. We started an after hours club that meets twice a month, very, very service orientated, very social orientated. The average, I'm no longer the oldest person in the club. Okay, we have 80 members. The average age of my club is 29. Right?
Wow.
And I'm not, right? My wife still wonders why I'm in that club, right? Would it happen to be that they're all 29? No. What they did is that club fell in love with the idea of hosting an exchange student, right? But as Steve can share with you, there's some work you have to do to be able to be ready. You've got to be trained. You've got State Department issues you got to go through. You got to have your ducks in a row. And my young new club in lacrosse didn't have that, but they wanted a kid. And so I said, well, why don't I just transfer? If I just transfer from my lacrosse club to the lacrosse after hours club, your club immediately qualifies to have an exchange kid. And 3 weeks later, we had Eugene from Taiwan. Okay. So I have been a member now of that club for 8 years and I love it. You know, they challenge the crap out of me. You know, they're continually, they do things differently. And so to your point, the person that asked the question, the great thing about Rotary is that there's no one way to do it. There's 1,000 ways of skinning this cat. The world does have a lot of different ways to skin that cat. You were down for a group study exchange. I've spent months in Brazil. I adore Brazil. And some of their clubs are great. And some of their clubs are the most Thai stuffed. I haven't, women are an endangered species thing I've ever seen in my life. So every club is different and every country is different, but we can choose at a club level what we want to be. And that's what makes it great. Madison South can decide what you want to be. And I applaud that. I say hand. Yep.
Pass it on.
Thank you so much, Bill. I'm just wondering, who sponsored or who were the parents for Chloe? You were.
Okay, so we are still in touch with Chloe.
Okay.
I've asked her to be a program here, but the time difference is like, I forget what, I think it's like in the middle of the night.
It is.
So if you're interested in having a program with her or an interview, if you want to do a Zoom with her, like an evening where it's morning there, we can arrange that.
I would love to have her info, contact info. I think today, she might be, if all of us even kind of were able to do some, at least those of us interested, because I think right now it's pretty scary being over there. And that would be really nice for us to do that. Just as an aside, Ted and I hosted this is back in the 80s in Rhinelander, and we hosted she was supposed to be with us for 3 months. It ended up being for 5 months. A gal from Nancy, France. And it was a very good experience. I'm friends with her on Facebook and get to see her daughter, who now was probably about 8 or 9. And just thinking about having her daughter come on out over too. So, but it really is a phenomenal experience. So thank you. But I'd like to have that with Chloe if we could do that.
Yes.
We have a program every year where we have all of our past exchange students come on. We kind of like, looks like the Brady Bunch. They're all on Zoom at the same time. They're stoked to see each other. It's almost like reunions. They love it. We love it to stay in their lives too. It is remarkable. Also, no, I know you're looking around at each other too. You're probably saying, I couldn't be a host family. I'm retired or I'm like that. Bull. There's no such thing as a perfect host family. Okay, there's absolutely no such thing. I think some of the best host families I've seen are grandmas and grandpas that are spoiling the living crap out of these kids. Right? And I think it's fantastic. So don't think that you don't have a son or a daughter. There is no such thing as the perfect host family. It doesn't exist.
Just a quick FYI. So, yeah, Bill, I've not been a YPO for very long. But we, as a club, we are just doing short-term exchanges. We did one last year. If you remember, there was a young lady who came here and then her counterpart from Spain. And right now there's 2 students we interviewed, Willis and Charlotte, and they are now being matched up. But again, those are short-term. And once they get matched up, we'll know about that and see if we can invite them in to share a little bit from their home country. So we've strictly done short-term, but the opportunity is there to go longer if anybody's interested in talking about that.
Steve would need to do it if you wanted to have an inbound student next year. Steve, I'm not looking at the screen, so I really don't know what you've got as your background, but probably one more State Department test as a YEO. And then you need to have a couple of people in the club that are willing to be like the student's best friends. We call them YECs, youth exchange counselors. They are the people that are the advocates for the kids. But you guys if you've got Steve and he's already a YEO, you are 95% of the way there. Sorry, Steve, if I'm giving you more work to do, but too bad.
2 interesting recalls. I think downtown had a blind student, as an outbound. And he played the piano like a professional. And I can remember at Grand Rapids, Michigan, he got a standing ovation at the talent show. Probably didn't know he got a standing ovation. We also had a Madison student, a girl without arms. Okay. I understand she eventually got married and has a child, but she had worked with her feet. And she ended up in a home with a girl in her same condition. And what an experience. I'll sit down now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bill, we did a program back during COVID. I think we to give, because of the time difference, we ended up doing taping them.
Yeah.
And I put those together. I think we still have that somewhere. It's probably on our website somewhere. But we had like 6 or 7 of them. A few of them zoomed in just to watch it, but we wanted we pre-recorded this, a 3 to 5 minute type snippet from each of the students. And I thought that was a great program. And it was a lot of work to pull together, but it turned out really well, so.
What a great idea.
Anybody else questions for Bill? All right, Bill, thank you very much for being in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bill, for all of our speakers, we make a contribution to Rotary International's End Polio Plus Fund. We'll do the same in your honor. Next week, we have Sam Rubin from the Madison Mallards will be here to tell us what's new with the Mallards and what they've been up to and some of the local impact they've had on our community. Thank you for everyone for being present in person and on Zoom today. And remember, service above self. Have a great Rotary week, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bill.